Please welcome the Noble Odyssey Color Guard and stand for the playing of the national anthem. Please welcome Macomb County Executive Mark Hackel.
All right, there's a lot of people to thank for what's about to take place here tonight and the work that went into making this a reality. So I'm going to go a little bit on script here. So let me first say hello and welcome to the 2023 State Macomb County Address. Oh, shit. That was from 2 months ago, man. God. Let's start that over again. Hello and welcome to the premiere of the new documentary, The Hidden History of Lake St. Clair. First, I'd like to commend the Noble Odyssey Foundation Color Guard that we just saw up here on stage and thank them for the wonderful job that they did. Thank you for that work. It is incredible to see so many people here tonight, and again, it's obviously the reason why we're here is to support something that is incredibly important to all of us, and that is Lake St. Clair. You know, we're so fortunate to have this facility that we have here in Macomb County, the greatest two-year institution in the entire country, Macomb Community College, and if it wasn't for Jim Sawyer and his team and his staff, we wouldn't be here tonight, so thank you, Jim, for your leadership as the president of the college here as well. We know the lake means so much, not just to Macomb County, but everyone throughout this region. In fact, as I was in and around and working the crowd in the back, talking to some folks, there are many of you that aren't from Macomb County, but you want to be here because you understand the value of Lake St. Clair. And it goes beyond the Great Lakes. We know that this is one of the greatest lakes in the Great Lakes system, and it is one of the busiest freshwater lakes than any other during the summer months. So thank you all for being here for this premiere. And you know, it's interesting. For more than a decade, our county has engaged in what we call this Blue County Initiative and developed many partnerships in ensuring that the resources in the surrounding area remain a top priority. And again, it's not just about recreation. It's about investment, enhancement, and focusing on preservation. And because of the lake and its freshwater coastline, we know the value it is to Macomb as well as the region. And again, many of you have had some kind of connection with Lake St. Clair. We've all have fond memories of it, whether it's the assets that are attributed to that, like Metro Beach. Some people call it Lake St. Clair Metro Park, but how many of you really still call it Lake St. Clair Metro Park? You call it Metro Beach, How many remember the Tot Lot? Do you remember the Tot Lot? Do I get any Tot Lot fans? Thank you very much, all right? But again, we all have a connectivity to that, and one of the other speakers that's coming up here has a tremendous connectivity. And every time we talk about boating, she goes, sailing. She wants to talk about sailing. That's Candace Miller, and she'll talk a little bit about what she's got going, but that's going to be for her to talk about. But again, the economic engine for the county is absolutely incredible. Our planning department just did some kind of a study. They pulled a study together to learn a little bit more about the impact it has from an economic perspective. And many of us look at it, the value, because we love it, especially during the summer months. Being out there on that lake really does kind of bring that sense of serenity, and it is a treasure. But if you take a look at it from an economic impact, $1.6 billion annual impact to the region's economy. 19,000 people working in the boating industry. That is a huge, huge economy that we have here in Macomb County with that boating industry, and we need to make sure that we ensure we continue to protect that waterway. And so for those reasons and many others, we continue to celebrate the lake and invest in its future, which is exactly why our team at the Macomb County Planning and Economic Development Department that's exactly what they're doing, and they do it all the time. But tonight, I want to give special thanks to them for not only the work that they continue to do, but for the work they did to make this possible. And it's through the leadership of their planning director, Vicki Rowinski. Vicki, you here? Stand up and wave your hand for a second. Where are you at, Vicki? There she is, right up front here. There she is. Thank you, Vicki. And again, we also know there's another gentleman that I think pretty much, I don't even have to say his name. You'll all probably say his name. When we talk about parks and natural resources and recreation, this guy is at the top of the list, not just in Macomb County, not with just the region, but I got to believe statewide and possibly even nationally. Jerry Santoro, where are you at, Jerry? Is he out back? Jerry might be back. He's going to be speaking next. I got to give him a lot of credit, but again, he brought in a couple of his planners that really helped with this particular project here. Amanda Oparka, as well as Luke Hefferin, and I want to thank them. They're a small but mighty group, and I got to tell you, they really make some big things happen out here on Lake St. Clair. I often joke about that when I say big things about Lake St. Clair. I have a little bit of fun with my counterparts in Oakland County. We talk about Macomb, and we use this little kind of a quip. You know, we talked about the bass fishing tournaments that we have here, and it's amazing because I don't say it, it's the actual bass fishermen. They will tell you about, you know, this being one of the best bass fisheries on the planet. And these are people that fish all over the world, and they will say Lake St. Clair is the best bass fishery. And I kept saying, well, we need to do something about it. So my folks in planning, I said, hey, how about we put up a billboard and we talk about it and we call it, you know, we'll go Lake St. Clair, badass bass. And so we did. And so my joke with Oakland County is I say, hey, you're a regional partner in this. We love you. I said, that's where we go get our bait in your ponds so we can fish for those badass bass out there. So, but that being said, you know, there's a lot more work that's being done. And again, over this past decade, we have secured over 11 grants from the programming, totaling over $500,000. That's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort writing those grants, but they're doing that because they want to continue that preservation and investment back into our lake. So please join me in another round of applause for our team and their outstanding efforts that continue to make Macomb a great place to call home because of the asset we have with Lake St. Clair. We do have a few other speakers here tonight, so I'm going to get off stage. This is not my State of the County, as I just recognized. That usually takes about 45 minutes. I don't know that I get as big of a crowd, probably because it's 45 minutes. Maybe if I break it down to a half an hour, I'll get a bigger crowd. But with that being said, folks, you get to see the premiere tonight, but for those that aren't here, and there were many people, by the way, that were still looking for tickets, hoping to get tickets. An hour before this started, my brother calls me up, Judge Hackle, out of New Baltimore. He calls me up and says, hey, how do I get tickets to get there? I go, Bill, it's an hour before. They sold out. And he goes, yeah, how do I get a ticket to get there? I says, I can hook you up. You want to come backstage? He goes, yeah, how do I do that? I said, well, it's going to cost you. He said, never mind. So, older brother. So, with that being said, if you have anybody that's interested, they do want to see this, please tell them to go to MakeMacomb.com. Great website, great information to get people to understand the true value of Macomb County. But this actual film will be on that site as well as MacombGov.org. So, folks, thank you for coming here. Obviously, by your attendance, it tells me you care as much as we care about something that is precious to us, and that's our Great Lake, Lake St. Clair. So, thank you and enjoy the documentary. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Macomb County Public Works Commissioner Candace Miller.
Hi, good evening. To all of my fellow Lake St. Clair lovers, right? That certainly is something that we all have in common. I want to also echo what Mark just said and thank certainly the Macomb County Planning Department as well as Noble Odyssey, the Sea Cadet program. Some of you might be familiar with them. They have that beautiful boat on right on the Clinton River, and you see them out on Lake St. Clair. I was just talking to Luke Clyburn, who's going to be up here in a bit. I hate to date ourselves here, Luke, but I helped him get that boat when I was in my 20s, okay? So it's been a while. But anyway, that's a great program. This is going to be a fantastic film here tonight. You know, Lake St. Clair might not be a great lake, but it is the heart of the Great Lakes. That's the way we think of it, right? It's the heart of the Great Lakes. I mean, honestly, it's in the shape of a heart. I know it's a day after Valentine's Day here, but when you think about hearts, right, think about Lake St. Clair, because I always think, you know, you got the St. Clair River and the channels and Seaway and that going up, and then, you know, the Detroit River. Those are sort of the arteries off of the heart. And the very first thing that I got passed, actually, when I was a member of Congress in the U.S. House, was a resolution recognizing Lake St. Clair as the heart of the Great Lakes. So we were very, very pleased with that, that's for sure. We're going to see a lot about Lake St. Clair history tonight. And we have such fantastic history. And, you know, it is a small lake, but it's mighty, right? Might be small, but it's mighty. It's 24 by 26 miles across. We have such incredible amounts of commercial shipping that happen there. Somebody has told me, I don't know if this is actually true, but I like the story, so I'm going to believe it, is that there is as much commercial shipping that goes through Lake St. Clair as the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal combined. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? And when you think about all the recreational boats that are there, Mark was talking about economic impact. I mean, you see an aerial of nautical mile, it knocks your socks off. You can't believe the concentration of boats. I mean, at the end of Crocker and Jefferson, our marinas, et cetera, everywhere. So it really is some incredible history that Lake St. Clair has, and we're living through a lot of that history as well. When you think about Anchor Bay, right? Anchor Bay, back in the day, the freighters would come up before there were navigational aids, and they couldn't get up into the channel if it was night, and so they would anchor in Anchor Bay. And then, of course, they built the Twin Sister Lighthouses, which I know there are some folks here, I was talking to them, that are here with the South Channel Lighthouses. Those were built during Abraham Lincoln's day, and they're still in our lake. So we do have some great history. You think about how the lake used to look, right? A couple of 100 years ago or 300 years ago, however many, back in the day. It was all swamp, marshland, you know, sort of a delta. And then certainly in the last 100 years, it's seen some dramatic differences, right, as we've developed it. As we've sort of filled things in, as we've seawalled things in, and now we've got neighborhoods, et cetera. People want to live right on the water there, and which is good in a lot of ways. But in some ways, we weren't really paying attention, I think, to filling in our wetlands and some of these kinds of things. And so it's interesting. I sit on something called the Great Lakes Commission, which is a binational commission comprised of the 8 Great Lakes states and then the 2 Canadian provinces. And we did a study on the fisheries in Lake St. Clair, and what we found was the amount of fish on the Canadian side was so much greater than on the United States side, because they really sort of left their side, the Canadians, in a much more natural state than what we have done. So we have been working in a lot of different areas to soften the shoreline, to increase habitat, and it's very, very important. Very important for the health of the lake. And so let me just mention quickly a couple of things that our department is doing, and working so closely with, you know, all the residents of Macomb County, because we're all in this together, right? And one of the things of the citizens of Macomb County, they are demanding, and rightfully so, that we do a better job of taking care of our water, of our environment, et cetera. So we're doing a lot of different things where we're spending literally tens of millions of dollars to reduce, with an eye toward eliminating, any more combined sewer overflows out into the lake, right? We want to talk about the history, but we got to talk about the future. We have, you know, some things don't cost millions of dollars. We have a very cheap program that's really got some great results right down at the VFW, next to the VFW Bruce Post in St. Clair Shores, we have this huge outfall, which we have these all the way along the lake. They're like 12, 13-foot diameter storm drains that go out into the lake. And everything that you see along I-94 or all these roadways after heavy rain go right out into our beautiful, beautiful Lake St. Clair. So we've developed a program where we're capturing the trash before it goes out there. We're taking dumpsters of this stuff out, and we're going to do that all the way along the shoreline. We're doing some things in some of our drains where we are trying to let Mother Nature with green infrastructure do her thing. We're taking thousands of pounds of phosphorus and nitrogen and sedimentation out before it goes into the lake. We've now got a very good notification protocol in case we have any kind of spills, whether it's a diesel spill or a gasoline spill. Some of you might have seen, we were busy last week with a chemical spill up in Warren in the Bear Creek. You say, what does that mean to Lake St. Clair? Because the Bear Creek goes to the Red Run Drain, goes to the Clinton River, goes into Lake St. Clair. So we have a zero tolerance for anything that's going into our waterways. But anyway, I just want to say I'm as excited. I have not seen this film. I'm as excited as all of you. And again, we have some great history, but we have a great future as well for Lake St. Clair. And it really is all of us to be such great stewards of this magnificent natural resource that God has given us. So we all have to work together to take care of it, and I know we all do. So thanks very much. Appreciate it. Enjoy the show.
Please welcome Senior Cadet and Chief Petty Officer Matt Schaefer from the Noble Odyssey Foundation.
Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chief Petty Officer Will Schaefer. I'm truly glad to see that all the hard work our cadets have put in during the summer has truly paid off. But that's not why I'm really up here to talk to all you guys today. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is the United States Sea Cadets? What do the Sea Cadets do? I am here to answer all of those questions. Now, the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps is a congressionally chartered and sponsored organization that serves to involve individuals in the seagoing military services, United States naval operations and training, community service, citizenship, and teach an understanding of discipline and teamwork. My story with the Sea Cadets begins when I was just 12 years old by stepping foot on the Pride of Michigan, which is our ship here at the Great Lakes Division. If you're not familiar with it, it is a retired United States Naval Academy YP boat, YP 673. At 13 years old, I attended Recruit Training Command Great Lakes, where I learned not only what it takes to be a Sea Cadet, but also received training from real United States Navy instructors. If you aren't familiar with the with Recruit Training Command Great Lakes, it's also where enlisted Navy servicemen go for recruit training as well. So I trained at the same place all enlisted Navy members do. Now, what do you learn as a Sea Cadet? In recruit training, you learn marching, how to take care of your uniform, marksmanship, seamanship, and many other things. Once graduating, you're open to attend almost any type of training you could ever imagine. This training ranges from SEALs training, you can train with real SEALs, or you can either just be working with the Seabees and training canine dogs and building their training courses. Now, after you train with that, you are invited to our advanced research dive trainings, where our unit in the winter season is mainly dedicated to training our minds for research, or training our bodies for the physical challenges scuba diving may endure on us. Now, come spring, we begin our work on the Pride, which is soon. And during the entire summer, we are training and doing research. Although there are nearly 2 to 3 main overnight trainings that we do that last about 1 to 2 weeks, but still we are training and doing research the entire summer. Now, what are the rewards of being a Sea Cadet in the Great Lakes Division? Our division, we give cadets real shipboard training and experience. The experience that cadets get while on board the Pride is unparalleled. There is no other unit or no other place around the world where young adults like myself and my cadets are given this type of experience like you will get on the Pride. During my time in the United States Great Lakes Division, I have achieved countless things. I have numerous dive certifications such as open water diving, advanced open water diving, search and recovery, underwater photography, peak performance buoyancy, and rescue diving. I have also been a part of numerous research projects such as relocating and retrieving the wreckage of the Tuskegee Airmen, which is the first African-American pilots that served during World War II. Identifying undiscovered shipwrecks in the Straits of Mackinac with state archaeologist Wayne Lizardi, and then also the research project that you're going to see tonight about the sunken city of Belvedere, and many other projects. Being in this division has given me the ability to be able to say, I've been a part of something meaningful, and that is what really matters nowadays. Other than those benefits, cadets upon graduation who decide to enlist in the armed services are often eligible for advanced military pay grade, and sometimes that can be between 1 to 2 grade, depending on the service that you send. Simply put, this just means higher rank and pay. Being cadet can also help individuals become more competitive for certain programs. The benefit of being a Sea Cadet goes beyond just the physical things that I mentioned earlier, and you will walk away from the program with honor, courage, and commitment, which is the Navy core values and the Sea Cadet core values. Honor. Honoring those that have gone before you to defend freedom and democracy around the world, and wearing that uniform and treating it with respect. Courage. Being brave to do things that no other person your age has done. Taking that leap into the unknown. And commitment. Being all in for your team. Being reliable so that when your team or unit must rely on you for something to happen, you can and will make it happen. Other than these 3 attributes, you will learn leadership, how to lead people. In today's world, colleges and businesses are looking for leaders more than ever. Leaders are getting old and leaving. New ones must step up, and the world is just begging for leaders or someone to step in and fill that gap. Again, the Great Lakes Division will give you the ability to say these things like I have been able to. Overall, being a Sea Cadet is separating yourself from the ordinary and becoming extraordinary. Becoming a Sea Cadet is becoming a better person. The United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps Great Lakes Division is a real thing that gives real experience to young adults out in the real world. It is worth it, and it works. The effort I have put into this program has paid off significantly. And without this division, I would not be able to stand here today and tell you that it pays off. Thank you.
Please welcome the President and CEO of the Macomb County Chamber, Kelly Levati.
Hello. I am honored to be here tonight to represent the Macomb County Chamber and our partnership with Macomb County and Macomb County Planning and Economic Development. This partnership was further developed through the Lake St. Clair Coastal Study that quantified the strong economic driver that Lake St. Clair is to our county and the importance of a Chamber of Commerce leading this initiative to formulate a multilateral blue economy strategy to encourage and support sustainable development of coastal businesses and communities. Through this study, we have formed the Blue Economy Committee, and if anybody is interested in joining us, please reach out to me at the Chamber. We'd love to have you participate. Tonight is one of our first fundraisers events to support the work that we plan to do. As one of the benefactors of tonight's event, the proceeds our portion will go to that Blue Economy Development Initiatives and the work that we want to do. As we are approaching our first showing of the Hidden History film, I would like to take a few minutes to give thanks to a couple organizations. The documentary would not have been possible without funding. Financial assistance for this project was provided by the Michigan Coastal Management Program, Water Resources Division Eagle, with funding through the National Coastal Zone Management Program. So thank you. Tonight's event was also made possible by our generous sponsors. I would like to take a moment to thank each of them. First, Macomb Community College for being a gracious host for tonight's premiere. Thank you, Dr. Sawyer. Your team has been wonderful to work with. And our first mate sponsors, MacRate Properties, Skipper Buds, and Temptation Yacht Sales, Inc. And lastly, I would like to thank each of you. We have had such an overwhelming response to the event, and we are so grateful for your enthusiasm for our Great Lakes St. Clair and the documentary. Immediately following the film, please remain seated and stay attentive because we have a very intriguing panel discussion for you. So now the moment you've all been waiting for. Let the show begin.
Lake St. Clair is large, but not large enough to be considered another one of the Great Lakes. It is extremely key to the other 5 major lakes in the system and the transportation that occurs between them. The entire landscape and utilization of the lake has changed greatly over the years. The body of water often freezes over in the winter, providing enjoyment such as ice fishing, sailboarding, and snowmobiling. Many boats are completely taken out of the water and winterized in the fall of the year. Boating takes a rest. The area becomes a cold, beautiful paradise. But in the spring, when warm weather arrives, nature takes over. Water starts to flow, and all types of wildlife can be seen. Historically, Lake St. Clair has been a shallow body of water, with marshlands surrounding the shoreline, and an abundance of wildlife. If sailing a vessel from the upper Great Lakes to the lower Great Lakes, or vice versa, one has to travel across Lake St. Clair. Various people have settled here over the years. Native Americans found hunting, fishing, and agricultural endeavors boundless in this natural, pristine environment. And for many years, utilized the area's resources and traded goods. In the 1500s, many varieties of people arrived in the area. People visited many times from faraway lands. changes quickly took place in the vicinity. These new people started to inhabit the countryside.
Fortunately for us, we have quite a bit of documentation from our local historians, and we have good records of maps from the locations. This should help with locating where the dives should actually occur in the lake, and then help with the evidence to support the stories that we're trying to tell of the people who lived in these communities and in these villages that were established here on Lake St. Clair.
By the late 1600s, what is now called Canada and the United States were emerging as new political and economic powers in the Lake St. Clair area. Each sought out usage of this rich territory. Trappers discovered an abundance of beaver and developed an area fur trading industry. Wild rice, game, and all the natural necessities of a good life were available in the surrounding lake region. Soon, French missionaries and explorers arrived and more accurately charted the lake system with the help of Native Americans. Within 100 years of French rule, England challenged the right to occupy the region, and turmoil and tension ensued. Native Americans, the French, and the English all struggled for dominance of the lake area. Because early settlers were dependent on water for transportation of goods, it was necessary for farmers to have access to the water. By the 1700s, ribbon farms were developed. Narrow parcels, sometimes a mile long, fronted on Lake St. Clair and the Clinton River to necessitate the shipping and receiving of their goods, and provided crop irrigation. Lake St. Clair was a shallow lake, especially near the shorelines. The most difficult area to navigate was in the north end, known as the Flats. The flats had numerous channels, swift currents, sandbars, and obstacles that blocked early travelers in this delta. The largest freshwater delta in the world is located here. Any ships that navigated the flats or delta area needed to know the waters and have the ability to select the correct channel to go in and out of Lake St. Clair. Judging the right time and currents for sailing was crucial. Dredging out the channels was an answer to the problem.
Back in the early days of the sailing ships trying to get between Lake St. Clair and Lake Huron, they had to pass the bumps that were known as the St. Clair Flats. There were 3 different channels that were used, but really the North Channel tended to be the most popular just because it was the deepest. And when I say deep, maybe 6 or 7 feet at most. For large vessels, this is kind of tough. And early on, there weren't the great charts that we have today. It was all very much done by kind of word of mouth between captains and some really, really early charts that were developed. Dredging of the channels of the St. Clair Flats affected both the commercial sail vessels, the power vessels that eventually came along, and arguably it affected how the flats themselves operated as a drainage system.
People were settling in the area, and trades were starting up. Trades like ship repair, sawmills, fishing, shipbuilding, farming, and barrel making, to name just a few. In 1835, before Michigan was even a state, a small community was created called Belvedere. It was located on the northern banks of the Clinton River tributary. An early settler, James Conger, envisioned a great city built here between the upper and lower Great Lakes system. The settlement continued to grow, and within a short time, a wind-powered sawmill, a grist mill, general store, hotel, bank with its own currency, and private homes were all built. But most importantly, a dock out into Lake St. Clair was constructed. Steamboats were built to move up and down the Clinton River. In 1837, a charter was created to actually operate a railroad in Michigan, connecting Saginaw, Belvidere, Pontiac, and Mount Clemens. An attempt to create a canal from the mouth of the Kalamazoo River on Lake Michigan to the mouth of the Clinton River on Lake St. Clair was proposed. Unfortunately, this canal venture was never completed because of railroad competition. One problem which the Native Americans and a Catholic priest had warned the people of Belvidere about was high water and flooding in this area. Lake St. Clair was subject to drastic fluctuations in water levels, created by variation in the amount of water flowing from the upper Great Lakes. The Clinton River would also overflow its banks. Even back in 1836, high water was already threatening the town of Belvidere. This flooding also helped increase the miserable mosquito population. By 1838, most of Belvidere was flooded, and the original Conger family was the only family still living in town. Soon, they also had to leave. The final blow came in 1882, when a spark from a steamboat caught what was left of Belvidere on fire. The Noble Odyssey Foundation, a unique local maritime research institution and hands-on youth training organization, was selected for its expertise to do scientific underwater research of the remains of the underwater town of Belvidere and the early church of St. Felicity. Both sites are underwater and have been lost for over 170 years.
Well, what we're trying to do here is to document a really interesting time in the history of this area when it was transitioning from a frontier to kind of a modern industrial commercial waterway. And so we have two sites that disappeared in the process of that transition. Most of this is underwater now. That's the whole reason these communities disappeared. So we'll be diving, we'll be visually inspecting things. We might use metal detectors if we think that there are fasteners. I mean, just about everything back in the day here was made out of wood. It was the most abundant supply of building material. On the other hand, it rots, it floats away, it disappears. So sometimes we get lucky and there are artifacts, metal, ceramic, brick. There's any number of things that we might see if we look carefully enough and document where we find them.
The shallow water diving is a lot more difficult than the deeper water dives. It's because of the tremendous amount of boats that are on Lake St. Clair, and every time boats go by, it bounces you up and down. It also messes up the visibility of the water. But if we shoot enough days and we come over enough days when it's not so many boats out, then we get good footage. We're dealing with wind, we're dealing with rain, we're dealing with thousands of boats.
The search for the St. Felicity Church focuses on a location south of the Clinton River, near the old town of Belvidere. Around the bend, on the old shoreline, St. Felicity Church eludes discovery. The old church foundation, shown in this model, is thought to now be about 2,000 feet offshore in about 8 feet of water, and is the first site to be explored. The dive team launches from the Clinton River in search of the St. Felicity Church. The majority of the underwater area is very muddy from layers of silt collected over the years. The divers need to be very careful not to stir up the sediments in order to see clearly. Divers enter the water and search for signs of the historic remains of St. Felicity Church.
Growing up here in Macomb County and being a lifelong resident of Macomb County, I was not aware of all of this history. The earliest settlers on Lake St. Clair, I just have learned through this project who they were and about the town of Belvedere and St. Felicity and really what the history of the county is.
The divers meticulously search for signs of the old church foundation. Over the years, erosion, ice, and shifting sand may have erased all traces of its existence. While the divers search for remains of the old church, the lake hosts a variety of other recreational activities. As people utilize the water of Lake St. Clair for fun, the area's wildlife also makes use of the important region. Many of the local wildlife species make their home here.
Lake St. Clair offers boating, fishing, wildlife, and for me, the most exciting spot is Metro Beach.
The ecosystem is different in the Lake St. Clair marsh area from surrounding regions due to the lake effect. Warmer summers and longer falls make it a favorable choice as an agricultural spot.
Today we're at the Harsons Island Managed Waterfowl Hunting Area, which is a unit within the St. Clair Flats Wildlife Area, which is one of the largest freshwater deltas in the world and is managed by the Department of Natural Resources. It's a giant wetland complex that we have the pleasure of operating. I love wetlands, I love the island. There's a whole list of things that make this place special and unique. But we're fortunate to have Lake St. Clair in our backyard and world-class fishing opportunities, world-class hunting, the opportunity to trap, the opportunity to birdwatch, the opportunity to, get out and enjoy nature and get away from the hustle and bustle of things, but still only be an hour away from, Metro Detroit. We're just a ferry trip separated from some of the chaos of life.
During the spring, many varieties of wildlife migrate via the St. Clair marshes. One type is the sturgeon fish, a very old species having a prehistoric look to them. They can live to be 100 years old and weigh up to 1,000 pounds. It's an adventure to accompany a team from the DNR Lake St. Clair Fisheries Research Station to tag and research sturgeon in Lake St. Clair. The ship heads for the flats area where special fishing lines have been laid out. First step is to carefully pull in any fish that have been caught. A fish is taken out and examined and electronically scanned for an embedded tag from previous catches. After weighing the fish and finding no old tag, a new tag is inserted, and then the fish is released back into the lake. A tremendous variety of different fish species are caught in this angler's paradise.
On any given day while I'm out on my charters, I could be pursuing any one of the varieties of fish that we fish for on Lake St. Clair. And with that, because of my knowledge of the lake and the understanding of the fishery as a whole, I also use a number of different techniques, whether it be live bait or artificial bait, whether it be casting, drifting, or even trolling. All of those methods provide a very high level of success when you're in a given area that is known to produce great bites and also to be great for fishing throughout the whole entire year.
After searching for the old St. Felicity church site in the weedy, muddy bottom without much luck, attention is turned to the submerged town of Belvedere. Inflatable boats are used on these dives because of their ability to navigate in the shallow water. Because of the shallow depth of the water, a simple viewing device can be used to help detect any debris of the old remains of the town of Belvedere. A marker is dropped to aid in further investigation. The divers enter the water to examine the marked locations. Lots of possible artifacts are showing up. Metal objects can be found using underwater metal detectors. The divers also use motorized scooters to cover more territory in their exploration. After the surveys and hours of underwater searching, it is determined that more dives are necessary to fully reveal the extent of the ruins of the submerged town of Belvedere.
Diving in Lake St. Clair where the depth is no more than 17 feet, and most of the diving we're doing is in 5 and 6 feet, which is the old shoreline, the old beaches that we have an interest in. But it's a whole new challenge because with the water being more shallow, any wave action coming in from the hundreds of boats that are out on the lake, plus a little bit of wind, it really has been a challenge. But it's a matter of just like any of other filming, you just keep going back until you get the perfect day, and you keep working, and make it come together.
The shipping industry created the need for dredging the channels deeper and deeper in Lake St. Clair. Deeper pathways were required to accommodate the increasing boat traffic. In the 1800s, the U.S. Congress spent $5,000 removing a troublesome sandbar from the mouth of the Clinton River.
What we've got here is a point kind of early on in the process of man working with or against nature in order to build a habitation, a place to work and live here on the shoreline.
As we know, the Great Lakes are very dynamic in their water levels, and as a result, Lake St. Clair is a relatively shallow lake, somewhere between the upper Great Lakes and the lower Great Lakes, and might change between 5.5 feet from the highest point to the lowest point. But what happened in 1855 is the US and Canadian governments channelized the St. Clair River even wider to allow 2 ships to pass. And at that point, what happened is more water entered into Lake St. Clair and couldn't exit, so it permanently raised the mean value water level of Lake St. Clair, and that's partly the demise of these communities.
The building of lighthouses also played an important role in marking the channels and navigational hazards in the shipping industry. Lighthouses were established in 1855 to mark the South Channel, which was at the time the most navigable in the Flats area. The ruins still stand. The town of Mount Clemens is just up the Clinton River from Belvedere. Mount Clemens was rich with mineral water, discovered in 1865. The largest concentrated water minerals in the world at that time were located in Mount Clemens. People arrived to take baths to relieve all sorts of aches and pains.
In 1859, the Grand Trunk Railroad came through here, and that is what really opened the doors. They produced a lot of marketing materials, and one of the marketing materials they produced was this beautiful advertisement. It was a booklet. It had places to stay and described the mineral baths.
The remains of the old flooded town of Belvedere and the few artifacts from St. Felicity Church are just reminders of the many settlements that have existed over the years. This representation of local history is a treasure for future generations.
I'm very proud of representing Lake St. Clair. This area, its heritage is just remarkable. It's very well known for being one of the nation's greatest recreational boating and angling, fishing lakes.
What Lake St. Clair has done for Kevin Miller is put this smile right here, this smile that you see every single time I come to Lake St. Clair. That's what it does for me. And it's real, it's genuine.
The Lake St. Clair area remains a beautiful and important reminder of our precious freshwater resources. Protecting these watery treasures is the responsibility of all that utilize these natural wonders.
Good evening, everyone. If we can have our attention up here, we're going to move into the second part of our evening here with our wonderful panel discussion. Welcome to the Mount Clemens or Macomb County living room. So I want you guys to just enjoy this. This is going to be a wonderful exchange of question and answer and sharing, and I'm looking forward to it just as much as you are. So what did you guys think? Pretty good, eh?
It's so great to have our local maritime history established and documented in such a meaningful way, so thank you to all who have participated in that. My name is Jerry Santoro. I am the Program Director for Parks and Natural Resources here at Macomb County in the Department of Planning and Economic Development. I had the privilege of working with a great number of people on our staff at the county, including Mark Hackle and Candace Miller. As you can tell, they are pretty big fans of Lake St. Clair and our Great Lakes and our great ambassadors, so we're really grateful for that. Vicki Rowinski, our director of our department, Amanda Oparka, Luke Hefferin, both worked tirelessly on this project. And I cannot go on without mentioning our communications and marketing team and Megan Ekmanik. Wonderful job. Thank you for all the work that you put into this. And I'm going to extend our thanks to Macomb County Community College, Dr. Jim Sawyer. Your staff has been amazing to work with throughout the whole process here, so we appreciate that. And what a wonderful venue to first view this film. Unfortunately today, Father Michael Ruthenberg, who was a St. Clair Shores priest, couldn't make it, but he did a lot of the initial investigation on the St. Felicity site back in the 1990s. I was able to discover that in my process, and the county records and everything that we found sort of backed up the information that he found, so it was a really wonderful find. I also would like to mention Jessica Haddish from the Noble Odyssey Foundation, Janine McFadden from our production company, and my good friend Bob Quigley for the use of your boat for one of the dives, so thank you very much. Financial assistance for this project was provided, as we said, through the Michigan Coastal Management Program through NOAA, and that's through the National Coastal Zone Management Act. So we're grateful for the funds that we received from them. And I had the privilege early on of meeting these gentlemen here. When I was going for my scuba certification, had to go to Captain Luke's house, and his house is a museum, just so you know. It's an archaeological museum from underwater stuff. It's absolutely intriguing. And there I met some of these guys, and I'm just sitting there listening to them talk about all their expeditions, all the work that they've done in the Great Lakes. And I'm thinking, man, have I ever privileged to sit back and listen to this? And it was sort of the inspiration to do this panel discussion here today, because I really felt like I learned so much, and the stories were absolutely intriguing, and we live in one of the most fascinating places on the planet, and you guys showed me exactly what you mean by that, so thank you. How many people remember the dream team of 1980s Olympic hockey team? I think everyone does, yeah. At least some of us a little bit older. But I will say that we have another dream team here today, and it's these guys. It's of a different sort, and you'll learn why really quickly here. So what I'd like to do is really just introduce these guys. Starting at my direct left here, raise your hand, Captain Luke Clyburn. He is the president and founder of the Noble Odyssey Foundation, captain of the Great Lakes research vessel, the Pride of Michigan, that's housed upon the Clinton River right here in Harrison Township, servicing all of the Great Lakes. Boy, are we privileged to have that. We have a master diver. Yes, please. He is a master dive instructor for the American Academy of Underwater Scientists. He does certification that almost nobody else in the Great Lakes region does. Absolutely amazing, the people that he's met along his program. He's volunteered, listen to this, an incredible 52 years as a president and founder of the Noble Odyssey Foundation. Amazing. And he has trained literally hundreds, if not thousands, of sea cadets from all over the place, all over the country, and all the levels of scuba and underwater archaeological surveys. He's a lodge member of the International Shipmasters Program, and Captain Luke Clyburn was awarded the Chairman Medal by the United States Naval Sea Cadet Program for his remarkable service Thank you, Captain Luke. We're not done yet. We got Bob Krepke, Robert Krepke, filmmaker historian. Bob Krepke is a well-known filmmaker and recipient of numerous awards. He served as a Ford Motor Company's corporate historian and produced thousands of films and video presentations. The combination of these talents made him a natural for creating the hidden history of Lake St. Clair that we just viewed for the first time. His love for this work certainly shows. Thank you. Thank you. Professor Daniel Harrison. Dr. Harrison is a professor of anthropology and maritime archaeologist. He's an adjunct professor of anthropology at Wayne State University. His specialty is in historical archaeology and maritime heritage of the Great Lakes. His recent research and publishing focus on Lake St. Clair and the St. Clair River. Thank you, Dan, for being here today. And on the far end over there, we have Mr. Wayne Lusardi. He is our state maritime archaeologist with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. Wayne helps to document the nearly 1,500 shipwrecks located in the Great Lakes waters within the Michigan bounds, and is involved in all aspects of fieldwork, survey, research, education, and outreach. Wayne's background in underwater and terrestrial archaeology and artifact conservation was derived in part from the excavation of the USS Monitor, guns turret in 2002 for the Mariners Museum in Newport News, Virginia, and recovery of artifacts from the pirate, listen to this, Blackbird ship Queen Anne's Revenge in North Carolina. Wayne received his MA degree in Maritime History and Nautical Archaeology from East Carolina University. Now you know what I mean by the dream team. We got them here, so. Thank you. So just an icebreaker question for you guys, and just a quick answer here. Look at how many people showed up. We were hoping for 200 or 300. Remember when we first started planning this? And look at this, a sellout crowd at the Macomb Center for Performing Arts. That's pretty remarkable. That is really, really neat. It tells you that the people here really care. And I just want your initial reaction. Does anybody want to just sort of tell me what you think about that?
Well, I think it's fantastic. I've had a passion for the Great Lakes, and having been on Lake St. Clair for so many years, Jerry, I can understand the history and I can understand, but the passion of the people, I think, is really where we've got to direct our emphasis and do more of. So I'm very grateful for everybody that's here, the support that we've had.
Yes, and it will be supporting the Noble Odyssey Foundation. So anyone else,
Well, I think that it's fantastic that all of you people showed up for this. I know a lot of you are boaters and a lot of you love Lake St. Clair, and guess what? We do too. And after making this film, I found out how many people were really passionate about protecting and keeping our Lake St. Clair for all of us to enjoy. Thanks.
Hey, I got into archaeology because it's fun. It's not a very well-kept secret, but what I quickly learned was that the best projects are the ones where the community feels that they're engaged, that they're learning something, that we are helping them to recover in some cases or maintain and share their own heritage. And so seeing you people here is proof that this is a good reason for doing what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We're all Michiganders. We love the water, right? The water surrounds us. And everybody thinks about Michigan, you point to the hands, the mitten state, right? But in reality, a third of Michigan is underwater. And if you're in the Keweenaw Peninsula, you have to go 60 miles out into Lake Superior before you get across the border out of Michigan. And so we own half of Lake Huron and half of Lake Michigan and half of Lake Superior and a good portion of Lake St. Clair. And if you can imagine the incredible number of hidden resources that are there that we don't even know about yet. We have iconic shipwrecks, over 1,500 or so in the Great Lakes, a couple of dozen right here out your front door. We have a lot of airplane wrecks in the Great Lakes, over 1,000. Again, about 50 of them right here in Lake St. Clair. So it's an incredible, rich heritage that we all share.
Wow. I learn something every single time I talk to you guys. So this is going to be so much fun. So let me ask you, Captain Luke, with the many dives that were made in Lake St. Clair, what was found?
What was found? I've had hundreds of dives. What I found was we don't really have a good understanding about what's underneath the waters of Lake St. Clair. You look at the building and the structure, the work that we've done, I can go back from Drowned Forest to Lake Huron, when Lake St. Clair did not exist 6,980 years ago. Since that time, the earth has changed, the lake has developed. The history of this part of the world is underneath the water. I looked in the amount of things that we looked at from the old hotels, from the docks, the piers, the history that goes back just 400 years in Lake St. Clair. What an excellent opportunity for a college or university here to put together some form of underwater archaeology program that they could go do searches, studies, without even needing to be scuba certified.
Did you hear
because
that,
of the depth
Jim
of the water.
Sawyer?
It's amazing the amount of things that are there, but it needs somebody to go in and study each little piece.
Yeah, incredible. And so, you know, we saw the teens here, and these young kids are remarkable. The few times that, you know, I've had interchanges with them at your shows and stuff. And one time you took me on a small journey up to Algonac. And I heard yes, sir, so many times. I was so impressed with these people. I couldn't believe it. I thought, now here's some kids that are going to make it in life. You use these teens. So why are you using the Sea Cadets for this Great Lakes research?
Because the foundation originally, Noble Odyssey Foundation, was developed to create a maritime interest with American youth. Our board of directors at that time said, if we're trying to develop an interest with kids, get them out to sea, get them involved with projects. And we found that if we can take young people, let them work with professional divers, let them work with scientists, get them interested, they're going to go on and go into some kind of science and develop a future career. And we're looking at the next generation of young people that are going to take care of our fresh water. That's so important today. And when you live on the water, when you're involved with it, you realize that it can go away. If we can develop that next generation, that's our goal and purpose. We want to get those young people involved with real projects, things that they can go down and find out about history. They can learn about things that they didn't know that they could know. But an interesting thing is that I have young people that work on the ship. They go to school, they come back, and they say, would you write me a letter and tell my teacher that I didn't make up all the things that I did this summer? So.
That's awesome. Okay. They're living life to the fullest.
You bet.
So Bob.
Yes.
What struck you the most as a takeaway from directing this film about Lake St. Clair?
I'm going to answer that in a minute, Jerry. I just want to give thanks to a few
please
people.
Please do.
And I know we can't see you out there, but maybe you can see each other. I don't know. I'd like to thank Janine McFadden. She was the producer of this show, and she did a real good job.
Very good.
Steve Wild, he owns one of the largest studios, television studios, in the Detroit area and we couldn't do these films without his help. Mike Fentner is probably there, raise your hand. He was the editor of the film, and you got to really hand it to him. He took a lot of these pieces and made them work. It was good. Allison Collins was the production manager. Lori Woods is maybe in the audience. She was the graphics person, and there were a lot of graphics in this particular piece. There's Josh Condon and Jeremy Scheim, audio. They did the audio, the great audio work there. Peter Carey was our narrator. Rob Krepke was our writing consultant. His name is similar to mine. And Darryl was technical services. And anyways, to answer your question, what was my takeaway? I think that's what you said. I was amazed when we made this film of all of the real dedicated specialists that I worked with from all those different areas, whether it was fisheries or the agriculture part. Amazing, amazing people that just really care about Lake St. Clair, and we've got to help them do their jobs. Thank you.
Very good. What do you like the most about storytelling through filmmaking?
Well, storytelling is what filmmaking is all about. When I was a little boy, I used to go down to the DIA with my dad, and we'd watch the George Perot Adventure Series.
Oh, my dad did the same thing.
Oh, I love that. You guys remember that.
World Adventure
That's
Series.
good. I guess I'm not that old. Okay, that's good. Anyways, we'd go down there and watch that. And those filmmakers would take you places that you couldn't go. You couldn't see these things, at least a middle-class guy living in Detroit. So I always felt that filmmaking way back then took me places where you couldn't ordinarily go in your ordinary lives. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and like underwater.
Oh, yeah, and of course, there's underwater, there's the aerials, now we have drones. You know, we can take people where you can't see these things normally. Yeah, it was great.
Great, thank you. Dr. Harrison, as a maritime archaeologist, what do you find interesting and significant about Southeast Michigan and its waters?
Well, what I want you to do is to come away from experiences like this with a different feeling about where you live, but also a different feeling about yourselves. And it's really not that hard to do here because, as numerous people have pointed out, this is really a unique place. It's that great crossroads that we talk about where this huge landmass of Ontario and this big landmass of Michigan nearly touch, and where this enormous bodies of water of Lake Huron and Lake Erie almost touch, but with this 60, 80 miles straight in between. That is unique. And with Lake St. Clair right in the middle of that. When you look at the urbanization that was going on in the middle 19th century, basically, industrialism and an urbanization that were taking place on the Great Lakes, it's happening in places that are right on the lakes, places like Chicago, Milwaukee, Buffalo, New York. Only Detroit and Southeast Michigan, the Detroit-Windsor area, was not on the Great Lakes. And as Candace Miller pointed out, this causes problems. It also causes opportunities. Because since we're not technically on a Great Lake, we don't have some of the protections or some of the oversight or administrative, baggage that goes along with that. But on the other hand, we are in this place that is unique and also fragile. I mean, the lesson that I take away from the Belvedere St. Felicity experience, where dredging a deeper channel to let water into the lake and forgetting to dredge another channel downriver to let water out of the lake, change the water level permanently. It still fluctuates, but it fluctuates at a higher equilibrium, about 4 to 5 feet deeper than it was. And that's where we lose Belvederes and St. Felicities. And so what this teaches us is that Lake St. Clair is scaled down to the point where people can make a big difference. You can't do that with a Lake Superior, okay? But here, you've got what's essentially, in the Great Lakes system, the canary in the coal mine. Okay? You guys, we here, have got a responsibility of stewardship to make sure that we have a healthy system here, because anything that happens is going to happen here first. This was ground zero for zebra mussels. All that bilge water that was being blown into the lakes, it happened here in the strait first. So that's what I take away from this, is how the lessons of the past aren't just interesting and fun and curious and everything like that. They're a kind of a blueprint for what we could do next and do it better.
So you pretty much covered a lot there.
That's my
I'm
job.
Like, how do I take that all in? But that was a lot of good information. We're going to come back to you a little bit later. I'd like to ask Wayne a couple of questions here. What does a state maritime archaeologist do? I think it's one of the most fascinating title jobs that you could ever have, but it's intriguing. Tell us what you do and what you experience.
Yeah, as a state maritime archaeologist, most of the time I can't believe that I actually get paid to do this. And so in a nutshell, I search for, I study, and I help to preserve the rich maritime, aviation, and cultural heritage that is now submerged in the lakes around Michigan. And as described, we talk about 1,500 or so shipwrecks here, but we also have caribou hunting sites that are 8,000 years old that are in 100 feet of water, 40 miles offshore. You know, stuff like that where when the lake levels changed dramatically, people used to live out there and hunt and occupy that landscape, as they did here in Lake St. Clair area, in Saginaw Bay and others, were dry land, essentially. We have a lot of airplanes in the lakes. There are about 1,100 aircraft that went into the lakes, and very many of them, or some of them, are right here in Lake St. Clair. We have about 55 aircraft accidents in the lake. Some of them are associated with Selfridge Field, and a lot of them are World War II related. I'm in the process of recovering. I'm leading expeditions to do the recovery of a World War II airplane that was flown by a Tuskegee Airman. The Tuskegee Airmen were, of course, the first black aviators for the United States military, and they operated right here out of Selfridge Field in 1943 and 1944, and that's stuff that most of us don't know a lot about. And so it's those kind of looking at those kinds of sites that are out there and bringing that information to the public.
Yeah, and I know you have done a lot with the ship recovery and documentation. What would be the next steps to preserving the sites that we have here? They're a little bit more unique in a certain sense, but for future generations, I mean, how would we go about looking at that?
Yeah, so Michigan realized the significance of their underwater cultural heritage a long time ago, and there were laws that were enacted at the state level back in the 1950s to protect shipwrecks and other inundated sites. And Michigan has more state underwater preserves that are dedicated to shipwreck preservation than any other state in the country. Of course, we have a lot more coastline than most states in the country, too. But we have a dozen underwater preserves. We have a National Marine Sanctuary up in Alpena at Thunder Bay. We have Isle Royal up in Lake Superior National Park that has a lot of shipwrecks in it. So there are ways that you can federally and state protect some of these shipwrecks from looting, from inadvertent damage through dredging, that sort of thing. So there are laws that are enacted right now. Lake St. Clair is a little tricky because it's partly riparian owned, it's partly deeded tracts, it's partly state bottomlands, but there is an opportunity to create one of these kinds of state underwater preserves in Lake St. Clair, and that's a discussion that we should have.
And in our research for looking at these exact sites, these some of these the native Indian routes were initially occupied when the explorers had come in and the settlers. But remarkable, when these ribbon farms were put in, that predates our statehood.
That's right. Yeah.
And we had to go back into like French-Canadian, claims that are held by the county records and try and do translation of these. And it was very interesting. So I'm sure that will play into it. So we're certainly going to be calling on you when we look into our next steps about doing some conservation for these sites. So I'm going to bring it back to Captain Luke again. Your work in the Great Lakes has been very extensive. You have about 12 other films between you and Bob documented already. So this is, your 13th and your best. I'm going to say it right now. It's
Thank
your best. But tell us what you are most proud of.
Well, I'm very fortunate to have met up with people that I've met up with, and Bob Krepke. We've been working together since 1980, and that was our first film that we did. But to take and narrow down exactly, all of the Great Lakes are exciting. We look at roughly 400 years since modern culture has been existing on the Great Lakes. But when you really study Michigan history, the Copper Age ran from 8,000 years ago to 3,000 years ago. We have 6,000 shipwrecks, I believe, on the Great Lakes right now. In the last 400 years, where are the shipwrecks from the early copper stage? You've got 5,000 years that nobody has really found any wreckage from that period. And that's covering Lake Superior, that's covering the northern Lake Michigan, it's covering Lake Huron. Somewhere there's wreckage. If we can find tree stumps that are carbon dated at 6,980 years, we can find wreckage from that period of time of 5,000 years that people were existing, working, moving copper, and working. So what is my favorite place on the Great Lakes? I'm glad I came to the Great Lakes.
He comes from southern Indiana, so we're glad to have you here. So, you go into Pride of Michigan, he's got a piece of, just a cut piece of log on the wall of the Pride of Michigan, and I just asked him, I said, why do you have a log attached to your wall here? And he goes, oh, that's like 7,000 years old, and it was from under Lake Huron. It's a part of a forest that existed in this landform that was here, It just blew my mind. So anyway, he keeps blowing my mind. But anyway, really good stuff. Bob, let's go back to you. What were the most challenging scenes to film in this presentation? I think I have an idea of what one of them is, but go ahead.
Well, whenever you do a film about wildlife, it's exactly that. They're wild. And it's very difficult to photograph them. The pictures you see in there, those muskrats and some of the beavers, those took hours to wait for those things to come out. And when you have a telephoto lens, a long lens, you're trained there, and if the muskrat or something comes up there, you can't get over there to get it in time. So I'd have to say the wildlife scenes were the hardest, but they also can be a lot of fun because you're out there and it's real quiet, and you're waiting to photograph whatever walks by.
And your resume is very extensive and impressive with your work with the Ford family and beyond that, and more recent items, including Beyond Oak Island.
Yes.
You got the intrigue of a lot of people. We saw you and Captain Luke in a couple of the episodes about Poverty Island. Tell us what you hope people take away from your work.
Well, I always hope that they take away, naturally, knowledge, that it helps enhance their thoughts about whatever the subject is that we're dealing with. In this particular one, I hope it comes across that we have to protect these lands and these waters. This is very important, and I think everybody's singing the same tune. It's just that we have to do it.
Yeah, good point. So Wayne, what kind of archaeological resources can be found in Lake St. Clair? I mean, you sort of touched on it, but there's going to be any further investigation on those?
Yeah, there's quite a lot. So obviously you have these inundated cityscapes. You have Belvedere and St. Felicity. You have all of the infrastructure that supported a maritime commerce on the lakes, and so you have old docks and wharves and piers and cribs for things like that. Net stakes and other kind of fishing implements, of course, that are everywhere. Aids to navigation, old buoys and piers for lighthouses and other kinds of things. And then, of course, you have the shipwrecks, and you have collections of them in the rivers leading north and south out of here. But in all of the coastal communities, probably around the world, you have boneyards where old wooden boats were no longer serviceable. They didn't drag them up onto land. They usually stripped and abandoned them in the water. They scuttled them or burned them to the waterline, and they sank. And so ultimately, when we carry on with additional survey around Lake St. Clair, you're going to find many, many dozens more shipwrecks, or not quite shipwrecks, but abandoned vessels there. And then you have the airplanes also that were both military and civilian that are still missing out in the lake.
Great. So Dan, tell us a little bit about some of the other projects that you might be working on at this point.
Well, right now I also have been working with our indigenous communities and helping them to recover and share and basically perform their identity as indigenous peoples. And my little niche there has been working with again, the four principal Native American nations that settled in the Detroit area, the three fires of the Potawatomi, the Odawa, and the Ojibwe, but also the Wyandot. And a lot of their communication and their record keeping was in the form of wampum, which is beaded belts. This is worth a whole digression in itself. And so suffice it to say that this is a way of them establishing their identity and sharing it with other people and arguing for their place in present-day communities.
And if I'm not incorrect, I believe that you assisted with the Battle River Raisin and then National Historic, or you were at least somehow associated with that.
That was the first experience I had with running my own project. It was basically my master's project, so I was kind of flying solo on that. It's the nature of the job, but it coincided very, very neatly with the bicentennial of the War of 1812. So I learned in about 2008, which was barely enough time, that there was a submerged road down at the mouth of the Huron River where it enters Lake Erie. And it turns out that this was a military road called a corduroy road because of its bumpy texture. It's made out of logs. And it had been 200 miles long originally. It ran from central Ohio to Detroit, and of those 200 miles, approximately a quarter of a mile was surviving, and the only reason it was surviving was it's underwater, which preserves things rather well, as we know. And so I partnered with the local agencies, the Huron-Clinton Metro Parks Authority, the Anderdon Band of Wyandot Nation, the City of Brownstown, Village of Brownstown, and especially with state authorities. Especially I have to give a shout out to the memory of John Dingell, who really made this whole thing happen. He wanted Michigan to have a standout project to mark its commemoration in the War of 1812, and this turned out to be it. It was later added to the National Register of Historic Places. We dedicated a historical marker on the anniversary of the battle that was fought on the site, and it has now been added to, as you say, the River Raisin National Battlefield Park as a satellite unit. So all of those outcomes, just because I was working on a trail down at the Humbug Marsh Preserve and said, "Any archaeology around here?" Ask a local when in doubt.
Interesting, interesting. And so, Bob, tell me about what's your favorite project you've ever worked on?
My favorite project? Well, that is a hard question, Jerry, because to be honest,
it better be Lake St. Clair.
Oh, well, it's definitely the one we just looked
Good
at.
answer.
I mean, that goes without questioning. But from the other 1,000, I'd have to say that every project that I work on, I try to make it, and it usually turns out to be very interesting. You know, there's always some little nugget in there that you go, wow, I didn't know that, you know, and it's very fascinating. And this St. Clair story, you know, doesn't end with this film. There's a lot more to this story.
That's what we're just discovering, yeah.
A lot more, yeah. And it's great.
And Wayne, what would be your favorite project, if you don't mind me?
You know, it changes all the time. It's usually whatever I'm interested or doing currently becomes my favorite project because I start to learn from it. I learn things that I had no idea about. I become very intimate with that. And hands down right now, it would be the recovery of this Tuskegee airplane. Yeah. It's opened up a lot of doors for me, particularly with military families and those looking for missing pilots that are out in the lakes here. We have over 200 pilots that are missing. Just in active duty service personnel. And it's very incredibly rewarding to bring some answers to some of these families that have been looking for their father or their grandfather or their mother for decades sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so, it changes a lot. It just really depends on what I'm immersed in at the time.
Right, thank you. And Captain Luke, I'm going to put you on the hot seat here. You've left a legacy already in your lifetime here locally, throughout the Great Lakes. You have respect everywhere I go, and anyone who's ever met you says he is the kindest, most giving person, and one of the most interesting persons you'll ever meet. And I have to agree with them, and I instantly became friends with you. I appreciate your friendship. Honestly, what do you hope of your legacy? What it should become? Or what do you hope for?
Thank you. When I look at it a bit like tonight, with the number of people that have the interest, this is not like this is the end. This is the beginning. What I am looking at is how in Macomb County, which is the center part of the Great Lakes, the greatest freshwater body in the world, how do we take this area, get more young people interested in the projects that we're looking at? It's not just a matter of my going down and seeing these great things, but how do I get other people to come in and understand the work that we're doing and want to keep it going?
Yes, for sure.
You know, I've been doing it for many years. I want to see it continue, and I will do whatever I have to do to make that happen. Keeping ships going, keeping kids at sea, getting that interest. When they talk about Lake St. Clair and the great fish and all of that, I look at Lake St. Clair on the freighters today. The kids that trained on our ship that are out running freighters is amazing. And where those kids have gone, how do we keep developing that, expand it, and there's more to be done.
Well, and there's such a need for the research and in a maritime research in this area, and there's a big gap in the education. So maybe that's something we look at, at the county level, and we are working with some of our research universities, but we have an incredible community college here, I've been told. And I believe it, because look at this place, and look at the stuff that gets done at Macomb Community College. It's different than most in that sense. So that's my hope, is that we can figure that out soon.
I will work with you.
Great.
Whatever we've got.
And we're going to have to wrap up here, but I know, Dan, you want to do a little plug for, if you guys like this history stuff, he's got a treat for you. So
yeah, this, boy, everything kind of hit the fan at the same time. This project really ties in with some other work that I'd been doing, but late next month at the Oakland Center at Oakland University, there's the annual Historical Society of Michigan Local History Conference. It's a 2-day conference. It's Friday and Saturday, March 22nd and 23rd. And on the 23rd, I'm going to basically do a kind of an expanded version of what we're seeing here, because what I really realized early on was this episode with Belvedere and the St. Felicity kind of represented the tipping point in a process that was a long time coming and has been going on a long time since. And so I take more like a 300-year view of this whole process, looking at how we, and when I mean we, I mean really various groups of people, from indigenous peoples who have been here for time out of mind, through French and British colonial, frontier American and Canadian, and then on into an industrial, modernized society in an artificial, man-made environment. How we treat shorelines. And so if you're interested in that sort of thing, it's a really cool conference. If you get a day's worth of lectures, you're going to be in about 12 sessions like this here. Really excellent people. So take a look at it. It will also be an opportunity for me to do a kind of a soft opening of a book that I've just recently completed and is going to come out in general distribution in April, but we're going to have some advanced copies there. It's called Michigan's Venice, which some of you history buffs may know out there, was the nickname that was given to the St. Clair Flats. It was our playground, Tashmoo Park and all that. That was Michigan's Venice. And so I look at how that landscape transformed over like a 300-year period from 1640 to the present day. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, and you're welcome. And I only did that because I know you're including some of our shoreline projects that our department's involved in, so thank you very much for including those.
This is, as I say, this is the fulcrum. This is the tipping point of the whole view that I took.
It is, and we are making a difference. So
we are making a difference.
That's great here.
For better or worse.
Yeah, I think it's getting better.
Yes, we have to choose the better. Yes.
So I want to just, I think all of us, everyone here tonight is much better off after seeing this incredible film, after listening to you guys shed your wisdom. Really grateful for you all to be here. Thank you for participating and coming out tonight. And thank you to our audience for coming out tonight in big numbers. We really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you, and hopefully we'll have more in the future to share. So thank you again. Yeah.